Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. We have so much to get to this morning. I'm going to start with a couple questions. First, we're going to talk about Zuckerberg admitting that the Biden-Harris White House asked for censorship on certain COVID-related topics on Facebook, and also that Mark Zuckerberg regrets censoring the Hunter Biden story. Amazing how all these things come out now that Biden is no longer the candidate, no longer the nominee for president. Isn't that interesting how that works? Now there's a lot of regret. Now there's a lot of, we knew he was this bad for years, but just didn't say anything from the media. So we'll talk about that. Obviously the big, well, I guess I don't know if she's still considered a Democrat. I think she may be independent now, but Tulsi Gabbard has suspected endorsing former President Trump, and also some back and forth on the debate, whether the debate will happen or not on September 10th on ABC. Now, I posed a question this morning because we've had this conversation before. Do you believe that Donald Trump should encourage the debate as much as possible? Now, I watched the interview with Jonathan Karl and Cotton from over the weekend. And that's the bias there, of course, is what Trump was referencing. And it was bad. It was bad also if you look at how ABC handled the interviews with J.D. Vance. I mean, Tom Cotton, J.D. Vance, both, you could tell the hatred on the interviewer's face. The bias-loaded questions almost seemed like Democrat talking points. So I understand. And I also understand not wanting to give in on so many demands by the Harris campaign when originally all the agreed-upon rules were really set up for Biden. I understand that. My problem is, and this is why I pose a question to you, because I know we've had a lot of viewers say they don't care if a debate happens or not. I believe, as we see the Harris campaign trying to run down the clock, I believe the only way to see the true Harris between now and Election Day would be a debate. You know, the word salad, the laughing. So I personally want to see the debate. I think the debate, arguably the biggest, most game-changing debate in history, was with Biden. I think we need, I think the Trump campaign needs another opportunity to show the candidate for who, in this case, she really is. Because the media is fine. As a matter of fact, we have quite a few media bias stories this morning where they're comparing her to Reagan, saying she's moderate, not talking about her record. So I am very much on the I want a debate because the media is not going to give coverage and show you who Kamala Harris really is or push her in any way with tough questions to expose her radical past agenda. I mean, if you even watch that Jonathan Karl interview, saying, well, she changed her opinion on that. She changed. And Tom Cotton doing a wonderful job saying, you don't know that. Her campaign, some campaign aide might have tweeted that out, but you don't personally know that. She has not said that. She has not said that to the media during a press conference to voters. So I have been very pro-debate, but I want to hear your thoughts. Before all of that, we've got a couple of updates. And this should be very disturbing to everyone viewing. Ricky Schlott has a piece at the New York Post that came out late yesterday. And she says the 2024 presidential election is just around the corner. And young employees are threatening to quit if their bosses express a political belief they disagree with. This is how thin-skinned, if you will, the nation has become and so divided. We've talked about this before where there's been divorce, where there's people losing friends and family over an R or D next to their name. In fact, a new poll has found that nearly half of workers under the age of 35 say they'd quit a job over political differences at work. Now, of course, I'm going to tie this in with the anti-Israel protesters on college campuses, because the younger people have been coddled by college campuses and the education system to believe that their opinion are the only ones that matter, that you should never be inconvenienced and never be put out, made to feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. So if the person sitting next to you in a different cubicle says that they are a Trump supporter, that is enough for those under 35 to say they'd be willing to quit. In an era of polarization, Americans have cut ties with partners, friends, and even family members over political disagreements, says Ricky Schlott. But now it seems they're even willing to leave a paycheck behind. It's a sign that politics has become all-encompassing and that there's no place in society left that it hasn't penetrated. Worse yet, young people are totally intolerant of people they disagree with. Yes, they have been sheltered. Remember, this is the same generation that while in college was, maybe given puppy dogs and chocolates and things like that the day after the election when Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. So there's this intolerance. And again, this goes to college campuses where there isn't free speech. There's one-sided speech. But remember, they were very successful in shutting down conservative speakers for years on college campuses. So they believe they should never, and that's why there was safe spaces and all those things at the time, and probably still very much so. This is how intolerant politics has made so many. According to a Harris poll, different Harris, commissioned by the job search company Indeed, 60% of employees would prefer to work for a company with a CEO that shares their political beliefs. Prefer to work for a company with a CEO that shares their political beliefs. 60%. Wow. But some workers go even further. Some 28% would resign over political differences at work. Imagine needing your world to be in this much of a bubble. And I know I talk about this a lot, where a Democrat could never be a Republican when it comes to media and news coverage. Because for a small window, Democrats are actually being pushed on, should Biden leave the race, remember? And they're not used to that kind of aggression from the media. Now, it's all been fine now, everything's settled. But Republicans get that all day, every day. Just, again, go back to the Tom Cotton interview with Jonathan Carter, the J.D. Vance at ABC. But it's also in this world. Imagine if, as a Republican, you only listened to artists or watched movies or TV shows where it was politically like-minded individuals. You would be down to what? A lot of best of Ted Nugent albums. A lot of Lee Greenwood. Continuing. Younger employers are even less tolerant. Let me try that again. Younger employees are even less tolerant of other points of view. A staggering 40% of employees aged 18 to 34 would walk out over political differences in the workplace or with the CEO. Now, that's a remarkable disregard for other viewpoints and a total lack of curiosity about how others think and why they believe what they do. And that's dangerous for a diverse democracy like ours, says Ricky Schlott. Quote, the fact that almost half of us would rather quit our jobs over politically charged factions than be open to respectfully coexisting is a telling sign of just how divisive we have become. Indeed said in the statement after the poll was released. It's no wonder, considering Zoomers and millennial employees were raised in an era of institutional activism, where their colleges and universities have taken stands on all manner of contentious political issues. And we're not going to go, we know all that, but coddling kids were even offered counseling by their schools after Trump won in 2016. No wonder they can't imagine interacting with diverging views in the workplace now. They're merely replicating the, quote, safe spaces culture of college campuses. Why shouldn't former students demand the same of their workplaces, especially after companies bent over backwards to make these, corporate statements in the summer of 2020? Kids have been convinced that it should be their way or the highway, even if it means being unemployed. Campuses might be ideological safe spaces for the closed-minded, but offices surely aren't the same. Yes, it's very much, the participation trophy generation, where there should never be any level of uncomfortableness. You should be 100% supported in all you think say and do. And at the same time, because you're in such a bubble, this is the worst time ever in the world. Whether because of Trump, or whether global warming, or whatever the case may be, because very often young people and the left in general cannot put things into perspective. But it's just a symptom of our sickly polarization. Despite often conceiving of themselves as being extremely tolerant, the kind of campus activism that has migrated into the workplace is anything but. Is extremely intolerant of political differences, said Greg Lukianoff, FIRE CEO and co-author of the book, The Canceling of the American Mind. This is unhealthy for democracy and is also quite elitist and arrogant. As election nears and the polls remain close, surely every workplace of decent size will have political disagreement. Any adult worth their salt should know that. For the sake of cohesion and productivity, politics should stay out of the workplace. And the majority wish that it would. According to the same survey, 54% of employees say they're uncomfortable with politics coming up in the workplace, and just 35% admit to discussing politics at work. Worse yet, they said that they feel pressure to conform to a political point of view, and 29% said they've been discriminated against or harassed for their beliefs in the workplace. A few squeaky, ultra-political wheels can really ruin it for everyone. Yes, there's a self-censorship where maybe you go into the workplace and you realize because of things that others around you have said, you better not mention your support of Trump. You better not have that Trump bobblehead on your desk, because it could ultimately lead to your job, or it could also just make your life miserable in the office place. More recently, under pressure to take a stand for the Israel-Palestinian conflict, Google's CEO Sundar Pichai told staff not to use the company as a personal platform or fight over disruptive issues or debate politics. This should go without saying. With the woke workforce that academia is churning out, it apparently needs to be spelled out. This election shouldn't cause mass resignations. It's time to learn how to share a workplace and a country with those we disagree with. So half of Americans under 35 would rather quit their job than work with political quote unquote opponents. And that's how we start off the morning. And we do have a couple quick that ties beautifully into this. The intolerance on college campuses, specifically with the anti-Israel, anti-American protests. That's when we come back. I see some comments coming in. We'll get to those. Zuckerberg, what do you think? No surprise, Biden no longer running. Now Zuckerberg can be truthful that yes, they were told to censor. Yes, they regret censoring the Hunter Biden post. Tulsi Gabbard, does that move the needle? Well, did you hear that Tulsi Gabbard's helping the president with debate practice before September 10th? Because Tulsi Gabbard, and we'll get to it later on, was the one that really brought down Harris's 2019 campaign because of the amazing job she did going after Kamala Harris, the debate after Kamala Harris called her now boss a bigot. And finally, do you want to see the debate? Do you think Trump should cave on some of these issues just to get that platform where Harris will have the opportunity for the word salads and the laughing and those type of things? There is no right or wrong answer. I just want to hear from you. Now stay with us. We'll be right back. Running just a little bit late, but that's all right. We'll make it up on the back end. Stay with us.
Hustleton's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hustleton's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hustleton's today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hustleton's Hot Spring Saltwater Hot Tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustleton's.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
It's time for the world's fastest, most extreme sport, the NHRA on Fox.
We're going to give it every single ounce that we have this weekend.
It's coming down just to the wire. We're all feeling it.
Gone like a shot.
You got to bring it all.
This ain't just racing. The NHRA on Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So many comments coming in. Let's get right to them. In regards to the debate, a viewer says, I think he should let her play out and ignore having a debate with her. If she messes up too bad, we may end up with a change we don't like. The Democrats are like bees. Let them think they're getting honey. Let the bear get them later. Thank you very much. Another comment from a different viewer. This is from Ken, who did so much hard work for us last week during the convention by actually watching all 4 days. Said, why would Harris's handlers want to have open mics during the debate? They know that Trump will not be able to keep quiet when he hears the lies she will obviously tell. The only reason I can think of is that she will do the same thing she did to Pence. When he tried to correct her as she was talking, she would stop and say at least twice, I'm speaking, I'm speaking. She does this to attempt to instill in the minds of the viewers that she is, as a woman, not being respected. Thank you, Ken. I think there is a point there. Now, some have said that's a double-edged sword because she could have that nervous laughter and those type of things. I do believe she is going to be very well rehearsed as to not do those type of things. Now, whether or not, before a debate, whether or not that sticks, so to speak, I guess time would tell. We have another viewer. I'm going to get to yours a little bit later on because when it's a voicemail, it changes some of the wording, and I just didn't have a chance to go through all of it and make sure that I could read it. That's not, you didn't say anything wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that it needs some autocorrect on my part. Correction on my part. So I will get to that after the next break. All right, one other thing, as we learn that half of Americans under 35 would rather quit their job than work with a political quote-unquote opponent. That's because they've been so coddled on college campuses. Look at the anti-Israel protests. Those kids know that they're not going to get in trouble. They're going to be encouraged by faculty. As a matter of fact, if you take the other position and are pro-Israel, it is not unlikely that your professor would even, let's just say, would negatively affect how well you did in certain classes. But anti-Israel vandals right here in our backyard deface Cornell University on first day of classes. Yes, the very first day of classes, anti-Israel vandals defaced a building at Cornell University, smashing the glass of a doorway and scrawling hateful messages like blood is on your hands. Now, I've got to say, Cornell was surprisingly late to the game on this. If you recall, when Columbia was doing these protests, Cornell tried, and they had a couple little encampments, but they were really late. They were kind of playing catch up. They were behind the eight ball. Surprising from from the history of Cornell University. In an anonymous statement to the Cornell Daily Sun, quote, we had to accept that the only way to make ourselves heard is by targeting the only thing the university administration truly cares about, property. The vandals struck sometime overnight or in the early morning, shattering the glass in an entrance to Cornell's Day Hall and spray painting messages including Israel bombs and Cornell pays. With the start of this new academic year, said the anti-Israel activists, the Cornell administration is trying desperately to keep up a facade of normalcy, knowing that since last semester, they've been working tirelessly to uphold Cornell's function as a fascist, classist, imperial machine. Wow. Joel Molina, vice president of university relations, said those responsible would be subject to suspension and criminal charges. Do you believe anybody will be reprimanded for this? Continuing, though, what Molina said, we were appalled by the graffiti spray painted and glass shattered overnight along the front entrance of Day Hall. Acts of violence, extended occupation of buildings, or property damage, including graffiti, will not be tolerated and will prompt an immediate response from public safety. What about the, I know acts of violence, and all that's fine. What about the obvious intimidation of Jewish students on the college campuses? That never seems to make these statements. Now, Cornell law professor William Jacobson, founder of equalprotect.org, said, given the weak response at Cornell last academic year to intimidation tactics by anti-Israel activists, it's no surprise that they have upped the aggressiveness by opening the semester with vandalism and destruction of property. Of course, if there is no repercussion. I wonder how that meeting with Hochul went. Wasn't that yesterday? Wait, so the Governor Hochul meeting with college campuses, I believe, was yesterday. So the day that Cornell opened up for the semester, talk about waiting till the last minute. And that whole meeting was supposed to be about ending this type of intimidation of Jewish students and acts of violence and destruction. So, oh yeah, here it is. I should have continued. The incident came on the same day Governor Hochul was set to hold a virtual meeting with college and university presidents in New York to discuss campus safety as officials fear a repeat of recent semesters when lawless protests and chaos reigned at high learning institutions. Man, talk about, well, it says often flat-footed responses. Well, speaking of flat-footed, you wait to have this meeting the day class begins? Now, some of these protests, of course, have turned violent, destructive. So that comes as no surprise from Cornell. Now, college students, according to Ari Lightstone, executive director of the Abraham Accord Peace Institute, says that college students should follow the UNC frat bros this fall and stand up to college hate. Be like the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina, who this spring courageously stood up to an anti-Israel mob trying to tear down an American flag. These students did not just defend the Stars and Stripes, they defended the most basic American values of liberty, patriotism, and opposition to terror in the face of those seeking to undermine these ideals in the heart of academia. Now, I know I don't want to spend we have so many other topics to get to, but it's so important here. For too long, colleges have been places where students are coddled and pushed to see themselves as victims or as oppressors. Dear students, that isn't America, and you can make sure that that isn't your university either. Saying stand up. One other thing on this before we go to break. If Iran, according to Mike Gonzalez, if Iran is pushing pro-Hamas campus unrest, Biden and Harris should admit it and must admit it. If our leaders want to avoid a repeat of last spring's dismaying anti-Israel protest, they should look into what role one foreign actor, specifically Iran, plays behind the scenes. Iran is not alone in facilitating the protest, to be sure. China, for example, is never very far from the scene. Cuba, too. But ask yourself, which of America's enemies benefits the most from disturbing U.S. society and seeing a rise in Jew hatred? Any computer model that maximized these two goals would have to spit out the radical theocracy that has been ruling Iran and ruining the lives of Iranians since 1979. Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines released a statement in July warning that Iranian government actors have sought to opportunistically take advantage of ongoing protests regarding the war in Gaza, using a playbook we've seen other actors use over the years. So again, it is unlikely that the Biden-Harris, or are we now calling it the Harris-Biden administration, will take any serious action. But both Haines and Kirby tripped over themselves by insisting that despite all the evidence they say they have on Iranian interference, they believe the students participating in the protest are not the dupes they plainly are. As college classes begin, let's instruct our leaders to finally level with us about this evil threat aiming to divide us. So how much is Iran involved in encouraging, supporting these anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-police protests at college campuses? That's just on day one. We have those stories already. Okay, we've got to take another short break. And when we come back, Zuckerberg admitting, conveniently after Biden resigns from running for re-election, admits Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor COVID content. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Thanks for all the waves. Thanks for all the comments. Keep them coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Marianne Burke. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Every Saturday, your game is on Fox. Because here is where it happens. Saturday on Fox, Judge swaggered up and went supersonic. True story. Saturday on Fox, the Dodgers put on a show in New York. You saw that, right? Saturday on Fox, Dela Cruz showed off his record-breaking arm. And it was Saturday on Fox when Harper went all Harper. So yeah, Saturday on Fox is where it happens.
It's a season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
And we are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We have waves coming in, comments coming in. One thing I want to mention, thank you to the person who sent in a voicemail. It types it out for me because otherwise it would play over the air. I can't do that. So I hope I'm doing the best I can with what your statement is. If not, you can call in and correct me. And I'm not discouraging anybody from leaving a voicemail whatsoever. It's just kind of the problem with the program that we use. But I'm going to try here. Good morning, Frankly Speaking. Well, hey, good morning. Regarding an upcoming debate, I know Trump had put forth that he would go to ABC, and now he's trying to get it taken away from ABC and move somewhere else. I think he should say the Fox network is my preferred place. That's where the debate is going to be. And Hannity would be the interviewer. And the proposal that they could get a taste of their own nasty business of relegating all the questions, holding on to the mic, the whole bit. I mean, Hannity is, I know, definitely pro-Trump, but look at all the ones that don't put out the correct questions. Listen, we go back to Candy Crawley correcting Mitt Romney in the middle of the debate. We go back to even some of the loaded questions, very bad questions from specifically 2016, but I'll continue. So why can't he dictate it, that where the debate's going to be? Well, you can make the argument that he is the only one there that's been president, so maybe he has more power. It's going to be on Fox. Otherwise, she's on her own, and she'll have to put out her proposals. That's what scares me, and that's why I'm very pro-debate. And hear me out. I don't think she has to put out her proposals. I think they're not on her website yet. I think she can run out the clock. Let's face it. She's only going to do, then they say there is one in the works, only going to do one interview in the whole month of August. And you know that's going to be a friendly interview. So I guess I'm just wishful thinking that I want to see or let the American people see, the voters see, who remind you, and I don't need to remind you, but we all should remember that the voters never had a say in her being the nominee for president. Did not have a say whatsoever. So it seems like she should have to answer more questions. What's your beliefs? What's your proposals? Like Tom Cotton said to Jonathan Karl, saying you don't know that she changed her opinion on that. That's what her campaign released. If you heard that from her, so just running out the clock just really concerns me. So thank you so much. The viewer says, I appreciate your program. Well, thank you very much. I'm even late to work most days because I'd like to watch the whole show. I will not tell anybody. I will not use your name, nothing like that. I'm sorry that you're late for work, but I really do appreciate it. I don't feel that bad. Thank you. That's nice. Another comment from a viewer. What do the protesters hope to achieve by intimidating innocent Jewish students? I just don't get how the bigotry plays into their anti-war agenda. I agree, but it's more about hate now. I mean, I think it's under the guise of anti-war. But how can you say you're anti-war and support and wave the Hamas flag? So I think that's kind of a catch-all where they try to compare it to Vietnam and the like. It's not. I think it is just about a movement of hate against Israel and Jews and Jewish students specifically. It is wrong, and it's full of hate. So yes, it's not bringing people to their cause, but their cause is large. I know people in the media say, well, it's just some agitators. I don't know. I think after you see the DNC, after you saw the protests in the summer, and then on college campuses last spring, it's something you have to take seriously. So Zuckerberg has admitted, now conveniently after Biden has stepped down from running for re-election, has admitted that Biden's administration pressured Facebook to censor COVID content. He admitted yesterday that the Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor COVID-19 content and acknowledged it was wrong to stifle the New York Post's coverage of the Hunter Biden infamous laptop story. In an explosive letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jim Jordan, Zuckerberg wrote that, quote, senior Biden administration officials, including the White House, repeatedly pressured Meta, the parent company of Facebook, to censor content related to the coronavirus pandemic in 2021. The content the Biden administration requested that Meta take down included, quote, humor and satire, which, let's read between the lines. That means mocking Biden, mocking Dr. Fauci. That, according to the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that needed to be censored. Now, he said he regrets complying with certain demands. Quote, I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our team at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction. And we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. So they did it. They protected the Biden administration. Now that Biden is no longer running for re-election, Zuckerberg says, boy, we feel bad about it now. Boy, that really stung. We shouldn't have done that. We won't do that again moving forward. Do you believe him? Do you believe this was to just cover his you-know-what as Biden is set to leave in January? He explained to the House Judiciary Committee, which has been probing Facebook's content moderation standards, that prior to the decision to limit sharing of the bombshell Hunter Biden laptop story in October of 2020, yes, October of 2020, folks, you recall, the month before the election, the actual October surprise that was censored by social media that Zuckerberg just feels so bad about right now. The FBI had warned Meta about a potential Russian disinformation operation. More of those lies that were so frequently pushed that anything that could be negative towards Biden or Hillary in the election before was Russian disinformation. That was the easy catch-all word to throw to silence and to censor and to convince people to not run with the story. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent the story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply, Zuckerberg said. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we should have demoted the story. In retrospect. In October of 2020, we censored it, and we regret that now. Why did this not come out? I don't know, while maybe Biden was still running for re-election. Why is this coming out now? Well, now they assured Jordan that Meta has put policies in place that similar censorship of stories, quote, doesn't happen again. You're telling me if a big story comes out about Harris and all of a sudden the deep state, the swamp, contacts him and says it's Russian disinformation, which they'll try to do and use that term again and again and again, you don't think he'd back off? Because it's easy to come out clean now that it's too little, too late, and that Biden's not running for re-election. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Well, it does stink that the story was censored in October. Many believe it is the game changer, that if it wasn't censored, it could have very well made the difference in votes, meaning that Trump could have been reelected. It turned out after the fact, the fact checkers looked into it. No one was able to say it was false. I think it, we'll say, stinks, though in the same way that probably having to go through a criminal trial but being proven innocent in the end stinks. I think the process was pretty reasonable, he added. A lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or the other, or even to appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle, meaning money, censorship opportunities. Let's take a break. What are your thoughts? Again, it's no surprise, is it? That the Biden-Harris White House would attempt to censor Facebook, tell them to censor COVID humor and satire. That should be no surprise because that humor and satire reflected poorly on them and the overreaching of Dr. Fauci. So it really comes as no surprise. A lot of waves coming in. Thank you. Let's take another break. We are running late this morning. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
You rip and tear your old statements and bills and simply toss those old bottles of pills. But thieves use this information to steal your identity. Don't be a victim. Get the ID Police, the new ink roller that encrypts all your old documents. So before you throw it out, just roll it on and your information is gone. Look, an identity thief can use simple information to get access to your credit card. Then you're responsible for the bills. But ID Police permanently prints a unique encryption graphic that makes it impossible to read through, both on the front and through the back, even if the paper is held up to the light. And it works on all forms of paper, matte or glossy. Paper shredders are slow and always jam, but roll with ID Police and you're in control. Watch again. Here's a bank statement with your name and account number. Now, one easy roll and all your personal information is blocked. Name and address? Blocked. Credit card number? Blocked. Phone, electricity, and gas bill? Now they're all safe to toss in the trash. So relax. Even your medical information is safe with the ID Police. And those applications or pre-approved checks make you vulnerable too. So block it out before you throw it out. And thwart any thief with the ID Police. Order now and get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 and get free shipping too. That's right, free shipping. This offer is not available on Amazon, but it is available online or on the phone. So call or click now to get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 with free shipping. Take control with ID Police on patrol. Order now.
Call 1-800-731-2964. That's 1-800-731-2964 or visit getidpolice.com. So call 1-800-731-2964 now.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon. Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Sharing the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud. 7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, thanks so much for joining us this morning. A comment from a viewer. I'm feeling especially uneasy as we get closer to the election. So that something can muddy this all up, kind of an October surprise, something to that extent. Legacy media is not trusted anymore, especially by Trump supporters. Yes, and I heard Gutfeld say, I'll continue with that in just a second. I heard Gutfeld say, I think it was yesterday on the 5, something to the extent that, and he compared it to, I think, a married couple where you're not fighting anymore, that your wife, your spouse could not even be angry at you anymore because they just don't care anymore. And that's really what's happening with the media, where Republicans just don't even care anymore that the bias, and I don't necessarily agree with that because I know it still gets a lot of blood boiling, but that they just don't even trust these outlets to do the reporting. And I, unfortunately, I have example after example of that this morning that we're going to get to, but I'll continue with what the viewer had to say. Do you have a gut feeling as to what surprises? Oh, let me take a step back. My question to you, Frank, do you feel more anxious? Do you have a gut feeling as to what surprises we possibly have coming? I'm not, here's why I feel uneasy. It's not necessarily about surprises. It's that the media can allow Vice President Kamala Harris to completely change her beliefs, what she campaigned on last presidential race when she ran for president. They're not going to pressure her on answering those questions or putting policy up on her website after over a month. I just think the power of running out the clock is what makes me very uneasy, because if they can cover up for 3.5 years the mental decline of Biden, one of the biggest cover-ups and scandals in presidential history, then this next 2 months is nothing for them. And the power of no negative attention by the media, no negative coverage from the media. I know you may think it does, not you, the viewer, but some may think it doesn't have that kind of power. It does, unfortunately. And so when, let's say, some of these younger people that maybe weren't going to vote with Biden, or not just younger people, just in general, some of the Democrats that weren't going to vote because they didn't like Biden, or going to go Jill Stein or whatever, now seeing nothing but positive coverage on their TikTok, Facebook, Instagram posts, nothing but positive about Harris, how great she is, Coach Walls, how just, his folksy wisdom, all that positive coverage. And then they tune in to the mainstream media, perhaps, catch the nightly news, and it's nothing but positive for Harris and Walls. So eventually it burns into their mind. I mean, that is where my unease has come from. Not necessarily a surprise, but perhaps you could say even lack of surprise. Just we're going to push you over the finish line. Now, Harris is finally set to have her first interview in weeks. She will purportedly sit for an interview this week as part of her campaign's ramped-up strategy heading into the post-Labor Day push, according to Axios. Harris has not held an unscripted press conference or unscripted sit-down interview about policy positions for 36 days since joining the presidential race. And this came out late yesterday, so technically going into 37 days. The media have not interviewed Harris on television since June 24th of 2024, and the last time the press reportedly questioned her at a solo news conference was 8 months ago on December 2nd, 2023. Now, I'm not sure what outlet. We do not have that information for you. Axios is just reporting that she will do one interview in the whole month of August. That's what I'm talking about with running out the clock, excuse me. That's where my concern is. Now, we have to take another break. But it ties in with what we're going to say next. It's the New York Post editorial board. And they said there's a pollster that admitted what is obviously known to anyone that watches this program. Democrats don't want Kamala Harris taking tough questions. They want everything to be scripted. Can they allow? That's why it concerns me when Trump starts talking about backing out of the debate, because that seems like perhaps some of the one, maybe a handful of opportunities to see Kamala Harris not scripted. So what are your thoughts? Pro debate? Either way. We got some comments coming in. Keep them coming in. I'll do the best I can to read them. Thank you for all the nice comments this morning, just in general. Let's take that short break. Which break am I on? There we go. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Hesselson Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselson's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselson's today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Spring saltwater hot tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Vamos, dale pues, vamos allá, muévete más loco, como solo tú lo sabes. Así es, con las manos en la cabeza, sacúdete, sacúdete, mira, sacúdete.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You're faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back. Man, this hour's going quick. We got so many great comments coming in. We were just talking about the unease leading into November, and the viewer wrote, perfect response to my question. Wow, I am grateful for the Frankly Speaking show. Thank you very much. That's very nice. I swear those are real comments from viewers. I'm not making them up, okay? Just so everybody says... Just like with Joe, when we always joke that it's nice that his mom's watching or whatever. No, these are real comments, and I can't thank you enough. Another comment. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. We'll count that. Question. Isn't what Zuckerberg did exactly what National Enquirer owner was accused of in New York by our Attorney General, Letitia James? Should he not be dragged into court to testify just as Pecker was with Trump? What a great point. You are exactly right. How astute, an astute observation. Yes, the hypocrisy really does know no end. But that goes back to the whole lawfare. That's why I think, optically, the chance of lock him up at the convention, though they love it, the Democrats love it, I think is wrong-headed from a political standpoint, because they have been accused of lawfare, and rightfully so. So yes, will we see Zuckerberg dragged into court? I do not believe we will. I don't believe we will see the Biden administration, Biden and Harris, dragged into court for their attempted, it sounds like, not attempted, it sounds like it worked, censorship of certain stories on social media. Great point. Ken writes in, where is Harris? Yeah, she's obviously not watching the government while Biden is on his extended vacation. Great point. Biden has been on vacation a lot. Boy, Biden's just in the background. You almost forget, and I'm not even making light of this. It's kind of terrifying. It is terrifying. You almost forget Biden is the president, don't you? Like when you do see a clip where they'll say something about Biden, it's almost like, oh, that's right. He still has 5 months in the White House. Very good point. She is setting down daily with a network that they have selected for the interview. Yeah, practice, yes. If they get to a point that her handlers think she is ready for the cameras, they will announce the network and the time. Yes, I believe she is practicing to no end for interviews, because she cannot have the word salads that she is so famous for, or the laughing that she is so famous for. So I believe there's a lot of practice going on till she is ready. I think the same thing could be said about the debate, if there's a debate, but Ken continues, and I think Ken and I are not that far off on our thoughts on this. She will never be in front of the cameras for anything that is not scripted from now to the election, including a debate, which her handlers may take her out of. I agree. This is the unease that I'm talking about. This is where I think people, how do I want to word it? Where people take too lightly the fact that the media can do a very good job of shielding her for the next 2 months. Remember, folks, it's essentially September. Think of that. Not going to be difficult for her to stay only on script until then. And that's why I'm saying, Ken, I agree. I desperately want her to remain the candidate, because even with the Dems and the media's tricks, she is beatable. Others in the wings are not. Thank you, Ken. But I agree. I don't think she'll do a debate. I think Trump has given her enough window, for whatever reason, to say, no, I'm done. I'm not gonna do it. Now, again, I know you can say, hey, I watched the show, Frank. You predicted the debate with Biden wasn't going to happen. You're right. But I was also, in a weird way, right that he shouldn't have done the debate, right? My thought was that he wasn't going to do the debate because we would see what we ultimately saw. But his handlers allowed that to happen, and here we go. That's where we are. Another comment from a viewer. My daily political therapy. Thank you very much. How kind of you. Keep those comments coming in, waves coming in. Okay, as I mentioned, the New York Post editorial board said the Democrats are now saying out loud what they always should have said quiet, right? They want Kamala Harris to keep hiding from the press. Going back to Ken's point and the point I've been making all morning long. In a Sunday interview with NBC, Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher shut down PBS's Amna Nawaz's plea for Harris to talk to journalists, saying, and I quote, this is Nawaz, interviews are where candidates face rigor and skepticism and questions about issues that they're not raising on the campaign trail and in monologue. It opens it up to conversations in a way that's good for voters and good for democracy. Yes, because remember, speaking of democracy, Harris has never received a vote to be the nominee for the president of the United States on the Democratic ticket. So if anything else, there should be more scrutiny, more questions. But it's not good for Democrats, Belcher shot back. Quote, as a campaign hack, no. She should be talking to the voters and barnstorming the way that they do. I don't want her talking to you all right now. That is Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher, with just 2 months out. Harris isn't talking to voters as much as talking at them from a teleprompter at rallies that insulate her from any risk of an actual interaction that could prove embarrassing. Belcher didn't even have to explain why he doesn't want the Democrat nominee sitting down for even gentle media questioning, because everyone knows she's prone to choking. Even a friendly reporter might be tempted to ask about her flip-flops on issues like fracking and healthcare, or for details on any of her policy items. Any policy items, nothing up on her website. And that's why I thought Tom Cotton did such a great job against Jonathan Karl in that testy interview, saying, Karl at one point goes, well, she's changed her position on that. And Tom Cotton's saying, you don't know that. She's never told you that. A campaign aide tweeted something out, but that you did not hear from her mouth, but I'll continue. She might get caught in a lie, like when she told Lester Holt she had visited the border, and he promptly called her out, or take refuge in the word salad, or dissolve into a fit of giggles. Democrats gain nothing from letting Harris, quote, face rigor and skepticism and questions about issues, and risk losing big time. Harris's track record in her 2019 presidential run, which didn't make it into the year 2020, mind you, shows that the more voters learn about her, the less they like her. That's why they're keeping her hidden. All Democrats want voters to know is that she's not Donald Trump. She's younger than Joe Biden, and she's four square for truth, justice, and the American way, plus abortion rights. As for the FaceTime with the press being good for democracy, well, maybe after Election Day. Fact is, Belcher was being too honest for a campaign hack and explaining things so clearly, and indeed, way more honest than all the media figures running interference for Harris's post-COVID update of Joe Biden's 2020 basement strategy. And I think you can make an argument she's even went more in the basement on that strategy. And they are, meaning the media, in a mode that is full protection mode. We saw it with Jonathan Karl. We saw it with the ABC interview, and her name escapes me, interviewing J.D. Vance. I have examples of it here, like Kamala Harris is being touted as a centrist candidate by the media after the DNC. Quote, sounded a little bit more like Reagan. Yep, that's an exact quote. We're going to talk about that when we come back and wrap up this hour. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Marian Burt. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. It is unbelievable. We are wrapping up hour number 1, but to show you a little bit more media bias. Well, no. Maybe I'll save that to the next hour because we almost are out of time, and I do have a couple comments and I want to get to first. I'd like to know what has happened to the idea of unbiased reporting. Good question. Clearly, this is not a priority of the media these days, and the personal views of hypocrites has taken precedent. It's a great point. I will say, and this was not the first time, but not that long ago, the New York Times coming out and saying in no uncertain terms that they didn't have to be unbiased because Trump poses that much of a threat. So the idea that they're unbiased, just watch that Jonathan Karl interview, and he's the same one out there saying that Kamala Harris sounds like a moderate, sounds like Ronald Reagan, which we'll talk about in the next hour. A different comment from a different viewer. I hope for once we turn the tables and present our own October surprise. But all I see is weak leadership, making some very controversial statements that once again move a little more to the left, if that's possible. Abortion for one. And I realize it's a huge issue, but why do we always make the concession and give in? $1 million question. $1 million. Speaking of that, always giving in and just proving again, going back to Kissinger's speech last week about useful, the political term, I'm not being insulting, but the political term, the useful idiot kind of idea, where you have these Republicans, what was there, 200 plus Republicans signing a letter saying that they're going to vote for Harris, and they were part of the Bush administration or worked for McCain and Romney. That kind of old way of, oh, it's his turn and we lose. Oh, it's his turn and we lose. Meaning McCain and Romney, or he's the only one that can beat Obama, and then we lose. Or he's the only one that can beat Obama, and we lose. Got to be more moderate. So all these people show their true colors, show who they truly are. These were the same people pushing us that Nikki Haley could win. Nikki Haley could get that vote, and if you don't vote for her and it turns out to be Trump, none of them are going to vote. It's Democrats that have put an R next to their name to try to take some moral high ground where they say, I'm a Republican, but I'm voting for Harris. So we'll talk about that in the next hour as well. But hour number 1 in the books. It is unbelievable. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about the debate. Do you want to see the debate happen? I am again erring on the side of I want the debate, but I don't see it happening. Tulsi Gabbard, we haven't talked much about that, but Tulsi Gabbard's big endorsement of former President Trump, and also Zuckerberg, conveniently, after Biden is no longer running for president, admits that the Harris-Biden administration did indeed contact them to censor certain COVID posts, and that he regrets censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story. And we've been talking about media bias. So keep all of that, all of your comments coming in. I want to hear from you. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. Wow, look at that. Look at all these comments and waves coming in. Thank you so much. But we've got to take a break. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up in mere moments. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Historic Market Street in Corning. A lot of waves, a lot of comments coming in. But I wanted to, just because I promoted this towards the end of the hour, just to tell you about continuing to talk about the media bias. Once considered one of the most progressive members of Congress, Kamala Harris, has widely been depicted as a moderate after the DNC. Listen to this. Quote, they talk about her, the Republicans, the Trump Republicans, as a San Francisco liberal, as a radical. They call her Comrade Kamala. This is ABC's Jonathan Karl, who, if you've watched that interview with Tom Cotton, you'll see his bias, his hate. He continues, if you take out the section on abortion rights, much of this speech could have been delivered at a Republican convention before Trump. That's when Karl continued, saying quite a contrast from the way she ran for president the first time when she tried to get the nomination 4 years ago. This is a Kamala Harris that sounded a little bit more like Maggie Thatcher or Ronald Reagan, especially on national security, than like Bernie Sanders. ABC's George Stephanopoulos, who worked for Bill Clinton, said Harris's speech made him think of moderates, middle class, middle America. Paul Begala, also a former advisor to Bill Clinton, claimed the Democrat Party has captured the center. Elections in this country are one in the middle, the moderate mainstream. And Jeff Zeleny talked about Hillary's convention in 2016. I was there. John Allen, a retired 4-star general, stood up to credential her on national security, and far-left extremists on the floor of the Democrat Party convention booed him. That didn't happen here. This is a party that has moved to the middle. It's moderation. She's being her authentic self. This is a woman who is a prosecutor. This is a woman who is attorney general. She has a record. She's not positioning by Kamala Harris. This is who she is. The party had at times been drawn to the extreme left. This is her authentic self as a moderate mainstream American. Did I not predict it last week that we could write these things for them? If it'd be easier on them, we could. I mean, that is so predictable that she is now a moderate, that now that the reins are off, the Biden White House, or before when she was actually telling her, speaking to the far left, she's not really like that. I guess she was just lying to win. I'm not sure. But how about this one? I'll have other examples of media bias here in a moment. We are going to talk about Trump campaign and Tulsi Gabbard and the like. But to show you how sometimes the left turns on the left, it can be kind of fascinating, right? In today's woke culture, as you've seen from the uncommitted vote, the anti-Israel vote, that even though you can't say that Harris has been tough pro-Israel, they still don't believe she's gone far enough and supposedly are turning against her. Well, in the left-wing magazine, The Nation, we learn that Harris and Walz embracing football, because they're now calling him Coach Walz and they even had those former players speaking at the convention, that the hyper-masculinity could cost them the election. In a Monday essay titled "The Dark Side of the Democrat Party's Embrace of Football." That's the actual name of the piece from The Nation. Let me read it again. "The Dark Side of the Democrat Party's Embrace of Football." The Nation's sports editor, Dave Zarin, slammed the Democrat Party's embrace of football as a symbol of patriotism during the convention. According to Zurin, quote, the hypermasculinity and violence of football connects to Kamala Harris's bellicose convention speech, and he cautioned that it could repel young voters who are committed to the progressive values the party claims to uphold. One of the universally accepted truths of right-wing media is that the left is coordinating a war on football. It also notes that figures like former President Donald Trump have long linked the sports to a broader political narrative. This was their sport. The right's loudest would always howl, he writes, describing football as hostile to social change, comfortable with violence, and guarding the development not only of players but American masculinity itself. How confused, how utterly rattled these conservatives must be at the moment. Democrats are claiming football for themselves, presenting the sport as not only patriotic but as a potent symbol of the kind of teamwork needed to take down Donald Trump. He then said the sight of coach signs and chants filling the convention hall, along with the former players, underscores the party's attempt at flipping the pigskin script. All right, I don't want to go through any more of this. You get the talking points, but it could actually hurt the hyper masculinity of football. All right, yesterday was the third anniversary of the Kabul airport bombing that killed 13 American service members and 170 Afghans during President Joe Biden's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. There is really another example of the media bias not covering this yesterday and even questioning Trump for attending a service. So Harris released a statement saying, as I have said, President Biden made the courageous and right decision to end America's longest war. Over the past 3 years, our administration has demonstrated we can still eliminate terrorists, including the leader of al-Qaeda and ISIS, without troops deployed into combat zones. I will never hesitate to take whatever action necessary to counter terrorist threats and protect the American people and the homeland. Harris has previously boasted she was the last person in the room when the decision to launch the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was made. Now, we know that Biden has a history, a well-documented history of making the wrong decisions when it comes to foreign and very often domestic policies. But foreign policy, many may forget that he was actually the only one opposed to taking out Osama bin Laden. But now, according to the New York Post editorial board, before we go to break, I see some comments coming in. I'm not skipping them, just so you know. I just haven't got a chance to read them out. On Monday, the third anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombing that killed 13 U.S. service members amid that Afghanistan withdrawal debacle, former President Donald Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery for a private wreath laying with families of the fallen. Doing their best to memory hole one of their administration's biggest failures, Biden and Harris took the day off. Instead, the White House issued statements in both their names. The Biden one even listed all 13 names, though he'd forgotten the fallen's existence during the July debate with Trump, when he proudly boasted that no American military had died in combat on his watch. And the president still calls the withdrawal a success, insisting he made no mistakes, though his top generals have testified under oath that he ignored their warnings about his withdrawal plan. Many saying they wanted it before, never mind what was going to happen, he wanted it before September 11th. Which is one reason many of the bereaved spoke at the Republican convention, where they noted how Trump had spent hours with them. The statement in Harris's name overlapped heavily, word for word, with Biden's. They came out of the same quote-unquote typewriter, if you will. Yes, they have these writers. It's not as if Harris is sitting at her desk penning these statements. While adding some prayers are with them and my heart breaks language. It also stands up for Joe. Quote, President Biden made the courageous and right decision to end America's longest war. That neatly ignores two things. The pullout plan he overruled his generals to impose, and her proud boast at the time she was the last one in the room when he made the decision. The disaster stands as one of the worst legacies of the Biden-Harris administration, emboldening terrorists and dictators worldwide. Many believe that this is what ultimately led to Russia invading Ukraine. And yet, most of the press are letting Biden and Harris dodge responsibilities. That's why Trump's honorable reminders should shame them all, but they're not covering it. It's not something, again, they can't do anything that could hurt Biden, Harris, well, specifically Harris, now until November. Now, the Wall Street Journal editorial board did let loose on Kamala Harris over this. We're going to talk about that. I see some comments coming in. Please stay with us. We're just getting started in hour number 1. If you're new to the program, you see that number on the bottom of your screen. You can text at any time. And I had someone ask last week, if you're not familiar, you see that little wave symbol, that wave emoji. That's just either people walk by and wave here on Market Street, or people text me wave emojis, and we add it to the list. Just something fun to make it more interactive for everyone. Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hesselson's Hot Spring Hot Tub Sales Event is going on now. New technology, cleaner water, easy to use, hot water made simple. Hesselson's, your locally owned and operated hot spring hot tub store since 1955, is offering huge incentives on their saltwater hot tubs. Deluxe lifters and steps, Bluetooth music, freshwater IQ, plus 0% interest-free financing options. Come to Hesselson's today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Spring saltwater hot tub. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
It's time for the world's fastest, most extreme sport, the NHRA on Fox.
We're going to give it every single ounce that we have this weekend.
It's coming down just to the wire. We're all feeling it.
Gone like a shot.
You got to bring it all.
This ain't just racing. The NHRA on Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We have so many comments coming in, and I'm not ignoring them. I just haven't had a chance to put them together. So after the next break, we will try to get to as many as we possibly can. Please keep them coming in. I'm not, just to make it very clear, I'm not ignoring you. I just ran up to get some more tea, and by the time I got back, we were back on the air. So we'll get to all of them in a little bit. All right. So the Wall Street Journal editorial board let loose on Harris for her role in the Afghanistan withdrawal, noting it's good to know what she thinks, but it doesn't reflect well on her judgment as a potential commander-in-chief. The withdrawal decision was arguably the worst of Mr. Biden's presidency, as he ignored the advice of nearly all of his advisors that a date certain total retreat would likely result in the collapse of the Afghan government and a Taliban takeover. Keeping a few thousand troops in support of the Afghan forces could have prevented the catastrophe and its consequences. Now, listen to how, and this is going back to the media bias that we've been talking about all morning. Listen to how they spin it at CNN. Afghanistan withdrawal haunts Biden and Harris as another general raises the alarm about Trump. So, boy, it really haunts them. They don't like it, but Trump's bad. Interesting. Foreign policy may not be most voters' top issues, but it's top of the mind on the presidential campaign trail this week. A new behind-the-scenes account of Donald Trump's White House raised serious questions about his prior approach to the job of commander-in-chief, the latest critique in a long line of warnings from former generals who served under Trump. Trump, meanwhile, has honed his own criticism of the Biden administration and of Vice President Harris in particular for the chaotic end to the decades-long U.S. war in Afghanistan, even though the plan was initially hatched during Trump's administration. Zachary Wolf from CNN. That's on the 3-year anniversary of the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. That is how they spin it. That is the narrative. Now, as Trump was honoring the Afghanistan troops at Arlington National Cemetery, the major networks ignored the anniversary altogether. As Newsbusters noted, ABC, CBS, and NBC ignored the 3-year anniversary on their Monday morning shows. Not a word from ABC's Good Morning America, CBS's Morning, and NBC's Today. Something to keep in mind as we talk media bias, and again, getting Harris across the finish line, letting the clock run down, which has been maybe you could argue the kind of the sentiment of the show today, the conversation that we've been having. But CNN made it even worse, this bias. This is Jim Acosta on CNN. Former President Trump was at Arlington National Cemetery, where he marked the 3-year anniversary of the bombing that killed 13 service members during the Afghanistan withdrawal. This is someone who, according to his own former chief of staff, said Americans who died in war are losers. Trump denies that, although John Kelly confirms that Trump did say that. He more recently said a civilian award is better than the Medal of Honor. You're a former Army Ranger. Is he politicizing these soldiers' deaths? Should he even be at Arlington National Cemetery if he's going to make something make politics out of it? So Trump is actually politicizing the soldiers' death by going to that ceremony, honoring the 13 that we lost in Afghanistan. This is, again, to recap what we've been saying all morning. Protect Harris, shield Harris into November, just 2 short months. Attack Donald Trump in any way possible, that even if he honors the memories of those fallen soldiers, 13 dead in Afghanistan, he is politicizing it. He shouldn't even be there. It is unbelievable. And he asked Representative Jason Crow that question, a Democrat from Colorado. I'm not going to go into it. I guess the theme this morning is to just show you even more of the media bias. Now, Trump did pay tribute to the service members killed in Afghanistan. It was moving. The photos are moving now. Again, Biden and Harris released statements that, again, I don't think this is telling tales out of school. They're not actually sitting at a desk typing out those statements. That is very much somebody behind the scenes like Tom Cotton. I thought Tom Cotton did a great job, again, against Jonathan Karl, saying, well, Jonathan Karl says, well, she's changed her position. I don't remember on what the issue is. Changed her position on that. And Tom Cotton said, you haven't heard her say that. She didn't say that. Some aide on a Friday night tweeted something out, but that doesn't mean she's told you or told the voter, or told the American people. But just to go back to what the New York Post was saying about them kind of memory holing or trying to cover up what many believe one of the most disastrous decisions in American foreign policy history, but also definitely the Biden administration, which is the Afghanistan withdrawal. Just to try to cover it up, Harris had no public events on her schedule yesterday. Just trying, and again, the media will let her get away with that. Now let's move along from that. I know we've been covering a lot this morning, and we do have a lot of comments. I don't want you to stop sending them in. I just haven't had a chance to read them because of some behind-the-scenes stuff here. But we are going to get to them after the next break. So ex-Democrat representative, so she is an independent. I couldn't remember. I asked that question earlier in the morning. Oh, if you are just joining us, we're talking about Zuckerberg. We ask you, do you think the debate will happen? I don't see how it benefits Harris. And in my opinion, Harris won't, like Ken had mentioned, won't go off script between now and November. But former Representative Tulsi Gabbard formally endorsed Donald Trump on Monday, touting the Republican nominee's experience as commander-in-chief. Gabbard, who's a decorated military veteran, made the surprise announcement during Trump's appearance at the National Guard Conference in Detroit. This is a really good point. Well, she said, "I'm proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent. If you love our country as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people." Now, it is being reported that Trump has tapped Gabbard to help him prep for the scheduled September 10th debate. And I bring this up because you may recall the 2019 Democratic primary debate. And just to give you a little background on this, Kamala Harris had a really good debate the debate before, where her line was calling her now boss, Joe Biden, a bigot. And it got a lot of attention. But Harris didn't realize that in primary debates, everybody's gunning for a few points here, a few points there. So the next debate, there'd be a laser-like focus on her. And Tulsi Gabbard hit it out of the park, saying Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president. But I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. Now, that was widely credited, that line. I remember watching it live. It was a very powerful line. That was credited with shrinking Harris's popularity among soft-on-crime lefties and contributing to the Californians' withdrawal from the primary before a single vote has been cast. And yes, if you haven't been following along, if you haven't been paying attention, Harris has never received a vote to be the nominee for the Democrat Party for president of the United States. And again, the media totally fine without asking her any questions to see if her policies have changed. Now, that was the endorsement by Tulsi Gabbard. We've got a few things to update you on here with RFK Jr. and his endorsement. A few things here about Trump as well. Keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Need a dumpster? Call Franzie's Disposal. Franzie's Disposal offers dumpster delivery and pickup, perfect for commercial projects, home renovation projects, or construction waste disposal. Serving Schuyler, Chemung, and Steuben counties, we offer 10 and 15-yard roll-off dumpsters with competitive pricing, no contracts, a 9-day rental period, and we deliver in a 30-mile radius. Make construction debris, household demolition, and home cleanup easy. Call Franzie's Disposal today.
Franzie's Disposal, now offering demolition services.
How many have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-2344. That's 1-800-980-2344, or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-2344 now.
Back to school time has arrived. Big Fox TV would like to remind you of some safety tips to keep our children safe in the community as they head back to school. These tips include learning bus safety, remembering bicycle safety, using main roads of travel, and staying in groups. Make sure your child knows what to do if approached by a stranger, and be sure your child knows their after-school plan. This reminder is brought to you by caring businesses in our community. Our friends at Tom's South Corning Collision, Cutler's Carpet, Suburban Propane, Fleet Pride, Shedden's Wholesale, Gerald's Pharmacy, and Big Fox TV.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank. I'm running around so much this morning. Okay, we've got so many comments. Let's get right to them. Don't they remember when Biden checked his watch? Total disrespect for the reverence of that moment. Yes, you've got Jim Acosta saying that should Trump be politicizing the Afghanistan withdrawal? After quoting hearsay that Trump has denied over and over again and they cannot prove. But he politicized. Yeah, Biden literally checking his watch throughout the ceremony of the soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan coming back on the plane and checking his watch. Yeah, they won't report on that. Anyway, we'll continue. I would not hold it against anyone who would protest against the clearly biased media outlets. The mainstream, the legacy media, as it were. Yeah, that was just not even anecdotal. That's not the right word. That was just a few examples of so many others that I could have reported on this morning about the bias in the media. So yes, it's one of the many, what's the word I want to look, many facets to this election. The covering up and the shielding of Harris by the media, the attacks in any way they can on Trump. And they just have to keep this up for a little tad bit over 2 months. Next up. Hello, Frank. Hello. We're counting that as a wave. I've heard the Democrats scream about election interference for a while. But now Zuckerberg admitted to it. Will he be prosecuted for his election interference? No, because it worked out in their favor. It's great. It's a great point. It's a great example of the hypocrisy, just like the viewer who suggested, wait, isn't this what the National Enquirer was alleged to have done with Trump? And that was a major story. And yeah, great. So many great comments. Oh, and to the viewer, sorry for the comments this morning. Don't ever apologize. Keep them coming in. And please, no one take offense if I miss one. Or like I said, the voicemail, sometimes I have to edit because of the quote-unquote translator on this, so sometimes it takes a little longer, or if it's off topic, I'll try to get to it later, but I have them all saved. But I'm never skipping one for any nefarious reasons, so just know that, and we'll get to some others because so many others are coming in. But let's go to another viewer. I've been so worried about the lies that people believe. I have 3 members of my own family that are believing these lies. I got to thinking, I only have 1 vote for president, but also to Republicans for Senate and Congress, and that would be helpful to Trump if he does manage to make it through all the cheating. Thank you. It is a frustrating time. That divide that we mentioned earlier in the morning, where half of Americans say they'd rather not work for an employer than that is a political quote-unquote opponent. Half of Americans, we talked about this in the 6 o'clock hour, half of Americans under 35, and it goes without saying, what party do you think they're affiliated with? I don't know. It doesn't say. I'm not speculating. You can speculate. Half of Americans under 35 would rather quit their job than work with political opponents. That's the kind of bubble people are in. And that's why, to that viewer's point, so many believe in the lies. Because if you're only surrounded by, for lack of a better word, yes men, that old idea that you're the boss and everybody around you going, yes, yes, yes. You get a sense, delusion. That's delusions of grandeur, let's say. So they don't even want to talk to someone different because they've been told they don't have to on college campuses, that no one's to challenge their opinions because they're the participation trophy generation where no one has ever questioned them or pushed back. So they shouldn't have to have that happen in the working world. But I'll continue. Other comments from viewers. How did we get here? We are collapsing and you see it everywhere. And short of divine intervention, I don't see how we right the ship. I sadly have witnessed good people in my life giving up and making terrible life-altering decisions, and it stresses those who care about them. The future looks anything but bright, as the Harris camp would like you to think, and too many are likely to be fooled. I think, whether or not you believe the polls, there are a lot that are quote-unquote being fooled. There are a lot of people, the polls have changed drastically. We have other comments coming in. I didn't get to them before the end of the break, so we'll get them after the next break. RFK Jr. Boy, the media and the Democrats hate a Kennedy now. Did you ever think you would see the day? James Carville has been doing a lot of interviews. He was on CNN's Out Front. Paul Begala said, look, Bobby Kennedy had a parasitic brain-eating worm in his head, and the worm died of starvation, okay? So I just think that we ought to give him like a lot of leeway because I think he's a bit eccentric. This is on CNN's Out Front. So again, no hiding the bias, no trying to report here. Host Aaron Burnett said, a Trump-Kennedy ticket. Do you feel any difference of opinion here from Paul on what he said about this? Do you think as somebody that could worry Democrats or not at all? This is what James Carville said. Not at all. I really feel sorry for the Kennedy family because I will remind them you can pick your friends, you can't pick your relatives. And if Bobby Kennedy lived in a more humane country, let me start that over again because this is the part you would emphasize if you're reading it. And if Bobby Kennedy lived in a more humane country, they would have him in a nice rubber room and, 3 hots and a cot and take care of this guy. He has no business being out on the street, mixing and mingling with people. But this is where we are in this country. We have a mental health crisis, and he's at the top of it. Then you had others going against Bobby Kennedy's wife, Cheryl Hines. Now, we had inadvertently predicted this yesterday, that because she is in Hollywood, that Kennedy endorsing Trump would probably be very detrimental to her career. There would be a lot of attacks on her, especially if she didn't speak out against it. And that's exactly what has happened. West Wing star Bradley Whitford slammed actress Cheryl Hines for not speaking out against her husband's endorsement of Trump. See, what they want, I don't know why, you would think, hey, leave them alone to their relationship. But it's just like George Conway. Remember when George Conway used to really attack his own wife, Kellyanne Conway, and attack her boss, Donald Trump, on Twitter, and the media ate it up. The left ate it up. They loved it. And it was so disgraceful and so pathetic of George Conway. One of these, George Conway is one of these quote-unquote Republicans that, always badmouths Republicans, so he gets a lot of attention in the media. It ended up costing them their marriage, or likely, they've split up. So there's something about this where now you have to speak out against your own spouse if you want to prove your bona fides as a true liberal, as a true anti-Trump person. Hey, Cheryl Hines, way to stay silent while your lunatic husband throws his support by the adjudicated rapist who brags about stripping women of their fundamental rights, the actor posted. Gutsy, great example for the kids. Profile and courage, he mocked. Wow. Now, Hines thanked her husband's supporters while calling for unity after Kennedy's announcement. I deeply respect the decision Bobby made to run on the principle of unity. Over the last year and a half, I have met some extraordinary people from all parties, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. It's been my experience that the vast majority of all parties are truly good people who want the best for our country and for each other. It's been an eye-opening, transformative, and endearing journey. She didn't sign up for this. To that actor's point, Bradley Whitford, she did not sign up for this. So to attack her for being married to Bobby Kennedy goes to show you, going back to some of when they say they don't want to work for anybody that is a quote-unquote political opponent, isn't that exactly what he's doing here? You have to be 100% in line. And that could mean your husband or wife could say something different. You have to be 100% in line with the anti-Trump, pro-Harris talking points, or you could be out of a job. In this case, you could be attacked for your bona fides. It is unbelievable. But then should it come as any surprise that half Americans under 35 would rather quit their job than work with someone that has a different opinion than theirs? Because isn't that exactly what Bradley Whitford is doing here? All right, we got to take another short break. More comments from viewers coming up when we come back. Stay with us. Oh, and I'm going to tell you about the 200 Bush, McCain, Romney alums. Oof. Yeah, who endorsed Harris. That's a real blow. They don't understand that this is exactly why people in 2016 supported Trump. Because Republicans, and I had this conversation not that long ago, and here I'm going to go on a tangent when I got to take a break, but I had this conversation, I won't mention with who, not that long ago, where they asked, they were Republican, and they asked, why did Republicans support Trump? I would rather vote for Donald Duck than Donald Trump. Why would Republicans support him? I don't know if they don't remember or if they didn't care, because Republicans have a long history of losing and not seeming to care. But I don't, listen, we were told the only way we can win, is if Bob Dole gets it. The only way we can is if McCain gets it. The only way we can win is if Romney gets it. And finally, when they said the only way we could beat Hillary is if Jeb gets it, the Republican parties threw up their hands and said, we're done. We're sick of losing. And Trump may not win, but we're going down. We're not going down without a fight kind of idea. So to have these people sign on, these are the exact people why Trump was so successful in the Republican Party. So we'll talk about that and your comments. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Vamos, dale pues, vamos allá, muévete más loco, como solo tú lo sabes. Así es, con las manos en la cabeza, sacúdete, sacúdete, mira, sacúdete.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud. 7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
This website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You are watching Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's go to comments from viewers. In reference to the comment made that the kind of the boycotting of the legacy media, a viewer said, I would love to see it happen. I wonder if said media would even report on it. That's a fair question. Another comment from a viewer. And thinking about the 13 that lost their life in Afghanistan, I Googled it for more information. And while it's hard to get accurate information on the internet, it sounds like there was about 45 servicemen and women injured in the bombing, and the total death was about 182, all from a botched surrender by the Biden-Harris administration. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for looking into that. I had not seen that number. Obviously, we know about the 13 that lost their lives. Trump honoring them at Arlington yesterday. And Jim Costa from CNN, criticizing Trump, saying, is he politicizing it? It's unbelievable. Another comment from a different viewer here. Frank, now that the nightly news is no longer watchable, there's a time slot that you can fill if you'd like. Think about it. You could stay up later and sleep in. Well, stay up later and sleeping in sounds very nice, but I want to be here to make your mornings a little brighter as you start off your day. How about that? More than 200 Bush, McCain, Romney alumni have endorsed Harris and took a hit at Trump. Okay, so George W. Bush, of course, who won 2 terms, but John McCain, Mitt Romney. You remember there's a lot of talks about this at the time where when there was a failed campaign, Republicans were very good at hiring consultants from the failed campaigns. So you'd say Romney just hired don't quote me here, but press secretary from McCain's campaign. I always thought, wait a minute, why would that be the case? But the letter from alums of the 3 Republican presidential nominees prior to former President Donald Trump, so you had 1 winner and 2 people that lost the race, McCain and Romney. At least 5 former aides to former President George H.W. Bush also signed the letter, which had in total 238 signatures. A similar group of about 150 anti-Trump former staffers of Bush, McCain, and Romney pledged support for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Among those who signed the letter in support of Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. So they worded that so strange. Among those who signed the letter in support of Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, include former McCain Chiefs of Staff Mark Salter and Chris Koch, Joe Donahue, former legislative director for McCain, Jennifer Lux, press secretary for McCain's 2008 campaign, and Gene Becker, longtime chief of staff for George H.W. Bush. A real who's who of political notables. I mean, really, a varsity list. A star-studded list of people that are Republicans that worked for Bush, who won, and then McCain and Romney. Yeah, I mean, I hate to continue reading all these who's who. Really going to take a hit on the Trump campaign. The group called on more moderate Republicans and independents to take a brave stand once more and support Harris over Trump in the fall. What a brave stand. We are going to prove that we're so Republican and so moderate Republican that we are going to support Harris and Walz. Because that is the exact winning attitude and exact winning recipe that created the losses of Romney, that created the losses of McCain, and really built up what ultimately led to Donald Trump's nomination back in 2016. When they couldn't wrap their head around why he was receiving support, this is why. Because the same people that told us McCain's the only way we can win, Romney's the only way we can win. When they finally said Jeb Bush is the only one that could beat Hillary Clinton, that was it. That's all it took. And Trump saying, hey, Republicans, do you want a winning party or do you want to keep losing? All right. Does that sway your vote, folks? I'm putting that question out to you this morning. We talked about the debate, Zuckerberg, but do the 223 who's who of former Bush, McCain, and Romney alumni, the who's who, calling for you as a Republican to take that stand and vote for Harris to really prove your Republican bona fides. Now, Vice President Harris's rise to the top of the Democrat ticket has generated momentum in the polls for the party, but some experts aren't convinced by her lead. Democrat strategist Julian Epstein told Fox News Digital, if the polling errors are anywhere close to what they were in 2016 and 2020, then Trump is in the lead right now. The comments came as the Real Clear Politics polling average shows Harris with a slim 1.5 point lead over former President Trump nationally. A significant shift from the 3-point lead Trump held over Biden the day before Biden dropped out. We're going to talk and about the debate. I know we've hinted towards the debate all morning long. I want to get your thoughts. I'm still not convinced it's going to happen. I don't see much upside for Harris. See, Harris right now sees it, as that one Democrat pollster said, that you can run out the clock. Why give unscripted speeches, unscripted interviews, unscripted press conferences, unscripted debates? Why do that? There's no upside if you're Harris, only downside. So I think Trump has given her enough wiggle room now to say, no, I'm not doing it. Trump and Harris campaigns clash over the debate rules, according to Fox News, after Trump suggested in Truth Social that he might skip the ABC debate on September 10th. Spokesman Jason Miller said that Harris's campaign was trying to change the setup of the debate that had already been laid out. Enough with the games, Jason Miller said. We accepted the ABC debate under the exact same terms as the CNN debate. The Harris camp after having agreed to the CNN rules, asked for a seated debate with notes. Yeah, with notes. There you go. And opening statements. We said no changes to the agreed upon rules. If Kamala Harris isn't smart enough to repeat the messaging points her handlers want her to memorize, that's their problem. This seems to be a pattern for the Harris campaign. They won't allow Harris to do interviews. They won't allow her to do press conferences. And now they want to give her a cheat sheet for the debate. My guess is they're looking for a way to get out of the debate with President Trump. Regardless, there's no way Harris is ready to be commander-in-chief. Yes, I do believe they're trying to get out. And that's why they're throwing a bunch of stuff at the campaign saying, oh, we want this change. I mean, okay, so you're sitting down, which is weird. A debate is standing up. I don't know why that was pushed for that. Now, notes and an opening statement, which, of course, will be scripted. What do a lot of people tune into? They tune into the beginning and then tune out very quickly. Now, Trump also called out for ABC News for their bashing of Tom Cotton on Sunday. This is what Trump had to say as I'm running late. I watched ABC Fake News this morning. Both lightweight reporter Jonathan Karl's ridiculous and biased interview of Tom Cotton, who was fantastic, and their so-called panel of Trump haters. And I ask, why would I do the debate against Kamala Harris on that network? Will panelist Donna Brazile give the questions to the Marxist candidate like she did for crooked Hillary Clinton? Will Kamala's best friend, who heads up ABC, do likewise? Where is little George Stephanopoulos hanging out now? Will he be involved? They've got a lot of questions to answer. All very good points in typical Trump language, but all very good points. Harris's campaign senior advisor, Brian Fallon, had this to say. We have told ABC and other networks seeking a host a possible October debate that we believe both candidate mics should be live throughout the full broadcast. Our understanding is that Trump's handlers prefer the muted microphone because they don't think their candidate can act presidential for 90 minutes on his own. We suspect Trump's team has not even told their boss about this dispute because it would be too embarrassing to admit they don't think he can handle himself against Vice President Harris without the benefit of a mute button. The vice president is ready to deal with Trump's constant lies and interruptions in real times. Trump should stop hiding behind the mute button. They're looking for an out. Let's take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. But Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Our water's better tasting. It's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
It's time for the world's fastest, most extreme sport, the NHRA on Fox.
We're going to give it every single ounce that we have this weekend.
It's coming down just to the wire. We're all feeling it.
Gone like a shot.
You got to bring it all.
This ain't just racing. The NHRA on Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go back to viewer comments. I'm so tired of people talking about things Trump supposedly said and lies he supposedly told. Is there anywhere there is a list that clarifies things that he did and did not say from a reputable source? I don't have an answer for that. I mean, I don't know if there's like a laundry list you're saying. I don't think, not one that I'm aware of. And yes, I would agree with you, because even sometimes when you Google something, it'll come up from an unreliable source about what he said or didn't say. So just like, or look at what Jim Acosta was saying. Well, Trump has allegedly said. So he didn't, listen, he has denied saying that military members that die are losers or something like that. So they confirmed it with someone that hates Trump. Oh yeah, I heard him say it. And that's good enough for them to run with it, even though he's denied it and they have no evidence. So I think that's a Herculean task for someone to put that together. In reference to the 200 and some odd, I say that exactly how I meant it, 200 and some odd former aides to George W., Mitt Romney, and John McCain. When you think about it, there's a lot of people working behind the scenes on these campaigns, that are telling you vote for Harris. Prove your Republican bona fides and vote for Harris over Trump. So someone saying this is from a viewer, globalist elites, sure, I want to listen to them. Not. Of course, being sarcastic, yes. 200 and some former aides. Okay, another comment. Frank, another question for you. Do you think we should vote early, bank our vote, or the day of? I understand there are concerns people have with this. Here's my thoughts. This is part of the structure. This is part of the rules now, this early voting. I am not as fearful of it. I think there are some really upsides to it. I know people that I trust in the Republican Party are telling us, please vote early. And there's a lot of different reasons. We had that one, and this isn't going to be the case, but there was that snowstorm and that special election, so people couldn't get out if they didn't vote early. Let's say you're sick. Let's say something comes up, an emergency comes up, and you can't vote. So I think there is an argument definitely to be made to vote early. As a matter of fact, I hope I remember, I've only ever voted on Election Day. I am going to this year attempt to vote early because, like I said, people I trust, like Joe Sempolinski and others, have been saying, as Republicans, it would be helpful if we vote early. We get an idea how things are going in many instances. This many Republicans voted. Not to say all Republicans are going to vote for Trump, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea. So, as to your question, I think it's a personal choice, a personal decision. I am going to attempt to vote early this year, if that tells you anything about my confidence in it, but I don't blame those who have concerns. I really don't. So I wouldn't knock anybody that waits the day of. I love the day of voting, so that's what bothers me the most, just the experience of it. Seeing the numbers of how many people are there, those type of things. I love that. So that's going to be the hard part for me. But on a technical issue or something like that, I don't have a problem with it. Trump threatens to pull out of the Harris debate, and hot mics are the issue. It just depends on where you go. That's Reuters, how they presented it. Trump later told reporters that he preferred to have his microphones kept on, adding that he did not like it muted last time and that he was not preparing much for the face-off against his new rival. Doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on, but the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate. You can't cram knowledge into your head for, 30 years of knowledge in 1 week. So, there's a little debate prep, but I've always done it more or less the same way. Well, I like that it's being reported. I don't know if Trump's mentioned that. I like that he is practicing, for lack of a better word, with Tulsi Gabbard because it's such an appropriate opponent, because Tulsi Gabbard just destroyed Harris in the 2019 debate. Trump appears to undercut his campaign's efforts over the microphone rules at the debate. Stephen Collinson says, why Harris wants to unmute Trump. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. Kamala Harris' most stinging line in an otherwise unmemorable debate with then Vice President Mike Pence. This is going exactly in line with what Ken said earlier, isn't it, Ken? It perfectly explains the latest twist in her showdown with Donald Trump. Most Democrats have heard more than enough from the Republican nominee, but Harris wants to let them have the chance to say exactly what he wants. When he wants in their scheduled debate on September 10th. Yes, she knows, and this is a history of Kamala Harris. In radio, they're called crush words. So what it means is you just something like you come on, man, malarkey, those type of things that Biden had. They think they're effective, and your mind tells you to keep using that word. So Harris, in this case, would definitely have the Mr. President, former president, convicted felon Trump, I'm speaking. She would not feel sheepish about doing the exact same quote, because then Democrats, like-minded Democrats, will then cheer that on, and it'll be all over the news on T-shirts, etc. The vice president's camp is trying to reverse a rule that Joe Biden's team secured for their fateful debate with Trump in June that ensured that a candidate's microphone was muted when it was not their turn to speak. The restriction was seen as an attempt to prevent a repeat of Trump's constant interruptions in their debates in 2020, which drove Biden to warn at one point, "Will you shut up, man?" It's obvious that the Harris campaign hopes to give Trump the chance to sabotage himself with an insulting interruption or his overbearing personality, where, as Ken said, all of a sudden it looks like as a woman, Vice President Harris is being disrespected, excuse me. So that's exactly why they want to put the mics back on. The spat underscores a huge potentially importance of the confrontation and defining the narrative for the rest of the campaign, following the most consequential presidential debate ever that knocked Biden out of the race. It's especially key for Trump, who has struggled to adapt to his new foe since the withdrawal of Biden, whom Republicans were confident in beating in November. Trump needs to debate, Harris needs to debate, said Scott Jennings. They both have something to prove. But yes, she is looking for that attack line that you're disrespecting me, because that's why, if you recall, when you were watching the Biden debate, I know I was saying, please, Trump, don't get too aggressive, because people are then going to give the empathy to Biden, saying that Trump is attacking grandpa, essentially. So she's hoping that he'll say something, do something to interrupt, and she can suggest that she's being disrespected. We got to take another short break. Oh, look at those last minute waves coming in. Thank you. Last break, then we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-781-9990 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-781-9990. 1-800-781-9990. Call now.
Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All the comments that we received, all the waves, really appreciate it. Just before we go, we had a poll earlier that showed that over half of Americans 35 or younger would not want to work in an office where there's someone with a different political opinion than theirs. Here's a weird poll to end our program with today. Do you think life is boring? Well, you're in the same boat as 1 in 4 Americans think life is boring. Well, that's because they're not tuning into Frankly Speaking yet. Life's not boring. We had a busy morning this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. As you know, I've been promoting this throughout the last few shows, but don't forget, I haven't had a chance to mention it yet this morning. Don't forget, there's the QR code, the benefit for the Salvation Army of Corning, coming up on September 8th at 1 to 4 p.m. at Nazareth Civic Center, so you can still purchase your tickets there. Plenty of time to purchase your tickets. Get a hold of me or stop over to Brown's Cigar Store here on Market Street in Corning, or the Salvation Army on 32 Denison Parkway East to get your tickets. It's just so important. That's why I keep mentioning it, folks, and I thank you for humoring me, and I hope that you will be able to purchase a ticket and have some fun along with me at the barbecue with great food by Corning Catering. Well, that does it for us today here on Frankly Speaking. Please join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning bright and early starting at 6. I look forward to it already.